By now that it's a good idea to use BPA-free plastic containers, but the reality is that even those may not be safe. 22 News registered dietitian Nancy Dell is with us today to give us more details. Great to be with you, Nancy.
Thanks, Ashley.
So what is the deal with BPA-free? Are they really safe, the containers?
Well, they are BPA-free, but they may contain a compound BPS, which is very similar to BPA and probably just as toxic as BPA. The problem with BPA is that, and BPS, is that they contain estrogen-like compounds. So when we consume things that have been stored in those containers, then we get these estrogen-like compounds into our body, and it's a hormone. And hormones are messengers that tell our body to do different things, and it just messes up your hormones. In fact, the most recent study suggests that part of the childhood obesity problem is because the estrogen levels go up in these children because they've consumed foods that were stored in plastic containers. Now we know when estrogen levels go up, it signals your body to store more fat and make more fat cells. So it could be linked to the obesity. Think about estrogen and just things we know. You know, when a woman hits puberty, estrogen kicks in, we get hips and thighs. Okay, in pregnancy, it helps us store fat. In menopause, our estrogen changes and it sometimes can cause some muffin top.
So it makes sense.
So it makes sense. So yes, you do want to be careful of BPS and BP-free containers as well. In fact, the best thing is avoid plastic altogether and ideally store things in glass, porcelain, or stainless steel.
So leftovers should probably not go in those plastic containers in your refrigerator.
Correct. So you can buy a food, like I might buy a salad dressing in a plastic container. Orange juice is another one. I don't have a choice. I can buy them in a plastic container. Sometimes if they're in paper, that's great. But once I open them, it's okay until they're open. Once they're open and they're exposed to air and there's chemical reactions that can take place, you want to move it. So I save these bottles. And like here's a salad dressing that had come in a plastic container. Once I opened it, I poured it into here. So you can save bottles like this. I save a lot of these little Del Monte peach bottles. And it looks like a mason jar. But that's the other thing. You can buy mason jars at a place, you know, a hardware store. You can get a dozen mason jars for under $10 and use that. So kind of like we probably did in the 50s before all this plastic ware came out, you know, everything was in glass and, you know, we had all these glass containers. Now you can get these little plastic containers, little glass containers with plastic tops. And I see in the different offices I go to, everyone brings their lunch now in glass. And that's really smart. You know?
Well, it does make sense that with the estrogen levels, absolutely. But what about plastic wrap? Sometimes you wrap things in plastic wrap or use Ziploc bags. Are those a good idea?
So the rule to think of is if the food is acidic or fatty, it's going to dissolve away that plastic and that will be a problem. So I may use a plastic wrap to put something like this. Maybe I'll put oatmeal in there because, you know, if I had some oatmeal and it's not going to really have a reaction. But I wouldn't put something like cheese in that because it's fatty. You'll see your very high-end cheeses are in wax. You know, they're in wax paper. You know, so ideally for something fatty, that would be cheese, things like vinegar and salad dressings that are acidic, fatty things like peanut butter, or this is almond butter. And you can see I just took the label and I put it on this glass container because when I opened this, it was now in a plastic, sold in a plastic container. And I said, I'm going to just transfer it over. So I just transferred it over and the label came off easy, so I put it on there. So fatty foods and acidic foods, once they're open, transfer them into glass, stainless steel, or into porcelain.
So it's a good change to make, absolutely. And one last question. A lot of people will buy their water bottles to go work out or whatever in a plastic bottle. That's okay to drink.
It's okay. You have it in a plastic bottle. Once you open it, this is made for one-time use. And that's the problem. People reuse them and refill them and reuse them and refill them. So ideally, you might want to use something that's stainless steel and you can use your own water, save yourself some money. But after you use this once, throw it out, take a new one. Not very green, you know, so if you can do something with stainless steel, it's going to be more green as well.
Much better. Well, Nancy, thank you so much. It's a very, very important topic to cover, so I appreciate you taking the time to tell us about it.
You're welcome.